The NBA is the gift that keeps on giving, man. We 24 hours away from Media Day officially, and we have our second trade this week that's going to alter the NBA. The Boston Celtics have just acquired Jrue Holiday from the Portland Trail Blazers in exchange for Robert Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, a 2024 first-round pick, and a 2029 first-round pick as well. So now, with all of that being said, after 4 days ago with Dame being traded to the Bucks, the Portland Trail Blazers have turned Damian Lillard into DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, Toumani Camara, a 2024 first-round pick, a 2029 first-round pick, a 2029 first-round pick from Milwaukee. The other one was from Boston, obviously, and a 2028 and 2030 first-round swap with Milwaukee. So we're talking about 3 first-round picks, 2 swaps. You got 2 guys who are starting caliber NBA centers, and DeAndre Ayton and Robert Williams. You have a savvy vet in Malcolm Brogdon, who will probably be another flip piece actually pretty soon, if I had to guess. If not, probably towards the trade deadline, along with Jeremy Grant. Already on Twitter, people hitting me up asking about Brogdon being flipped to the Clippers. And I'm like, yeah, that potentially could happen, where you either get some second-round picks and a young talent like Brandon Boston Jr. or something like that. But you have another flip option with Malcolm Brogdon. And down the line, Jeremy Grant, in my opinion, is going to be a name that NBA teams are going to be looking at when we get closer to the playoffs at the trade deadline. So that far, you got the Blazers looking good as far as what they did. A lot of people going back and forth about the Heat trade and the Tyler Hero trade. I was always a fan of the actual trade that happened. And it was because you got DeAndre Ayton, though a lot of people have hit me up recently saying, hey, DeAndre Ayton could have been had even in the Heat trade. But the main significant part is the fact that you did get Jrue Holiday, who was a lot more valuable on the trade market than Tyler Hero. I don't believe in my heart that Tyler Hero was getting you back 2 first-round picks. And for Portland, those first-round picks are going to be extremely valuable. When you look at the year 2029, they're going to have 3 first-round picks. 3. They're going to have their own, they're going to have Boston's, and they're going to have Milwaukee's. The way the league works right now, and because Damian Lillard isn't this young superstar, there is no telling what these teams are going to look like in the year 2029. We're only entering the 2023-2024 season. So we're talking about 5 years from now what the landscape of the NBA is going to look like. And for them to have 3 first-round picks that year, I think is incredible for them, seeing that they have a nice young core that they're building on, and it looks like it's only going to get better and better as the time go on. When you look at 2024, their pick is with the Bulls, but it's protected 1 through 14. If I had any guess, I would believe that Portland is going to keep that pick and it won't be conveyed anytime soon. And on top of that, they now have a 2024 first-round pick from Golden State. So they're already entering their rebuild with having multiple picks per year. And to me, that always sets franchises up because you're accumulating a lot of young talent. It gives you flexibility for trades, whether you want to absorb big contracts and extend 1 first-round pick to 2 first-round picks, however you want to do. And then when you just talk about the drafting philosophy, most franchises are a lot better when they're able to draft multiple players. That takes pressure off of the franchise from landing, like needing to hit every pick in the top 10. And a lot of times when we see this method, there's always a diamond in the rough at some point during a rebuild when you have multiple first-round picks. It's just the way it is, whether you talk about Draymond Green, whether you even talk about something in recent history with the Rockets where they were able to get Tari Eason later, Şengün later, like the late or second first-round pick for a lot of teams that are rebuilding, but they have that first pick that's high up. A lot of times you end up seeing home runs be hidden later. That's just the way it is for whatever reason. So I like this method for the Portland Trail Blazers to move on from Damian Lillard. And on top of all of that, they already have a nice roster with a lot of young talent. When you talk about Scoot, Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, we now add in DeAndre Ayton. And I'm a fan of Robert Williams. He's always just needed to stay healthy, but we know what he can do. So they have some things there. And plus they have a lot of arsenal for the future. And I'm excited for the turn that they're about to take in these next years going forward. Now for the Boston Celtics, amazing. I talked about it with Milwaukee all offseason. You had Giannis Antetokounmpo talking about potentially leaving, how much he wants to win. And you had his franchise say, hey, we hear what you're saying. And not only do we hear what you're saying, we're going to respond to you by making a trade like Damian Lillard to bolster our chances of winning and to show you we're as committed to winning as you are. In response to that, I felt like there were a lot of other Eastern Conference teams that had to make some type of move to respond. The Boston Celtics, personally, were one of the last teams on that list because they did make a big move in the offseason acquiring Kristaps Porzingis. I felt like that was a good pickup for them and for them to get better. But when I looked at the Miami Heat, I looked at a team like the Philadelphia 76ers. It was kind of like, what are they going to do to now compete with the other two top teams out east that made marginal moves to get better? And again, I considered the Celtics because I knew that they were going to have to get better competing with now the high-powered Milwaukee Bucks. But I more so looked at the other two teams. And for Boston to go out and say, we're going to make that move, not only do we get better, but now we take away a chance for the other two teams to get better out east. And I love it for Boston. You now talk about all of these moving pieces that they have on any given night. They can run out a lineup where Jrue Holiday is the 1, Brown is the 2, Tatum is the 3. You have Horford and Porzingis in the front court. However you want to slice and dice that. If Porzingis is your 4 and Horford your 5, or Horford your 4 and Porzingis the 5, that's a big lineup. You also could potentially now have a smaller lineup where you have Derek White at the 1, Jrue Holiday at the 2, Jaylen Brown at the 3, Tatum at the 4, Porzingis or Horford at the 5, depending on what's going on or the scenario of the game. I love that for them. To me, that's exactly what championships teams have. They have different type of looks. We can play small. We can play big. You know, we have lineups where we can crash the glass. We can space the floor, shoot a lot of threes, run up and down. And they now have that fold on their roster with their depth chart that they have a lot of versatility and a lot of different looks. Not only that, you now pick up a player who is the opposite of what the Bucks picked up. The Bucks picked up a superstar offensive weapon in Damian Lillard. It was going to be hard to compete with the offensive, portfolio that Damian Lillard comes with the Bucks. So to offset that, the Boston Celtics said, hey, we can't go out and acquire a guard who can score as good as Damian Lillard. But what we're going to do is we're going to go and bring in a defensive guy who can maybe offset that now. So now if the Bucks and the Celtics run into each other, they have a legitimate option to put on a Damian Lillard caliber guard, something that they lost this offseason in Marcus Smart. So I think the Celtics really, in my opinion, they're one of the most, I would say, highest graded offseason teams that we had in NBA. They lost their heart and soul and one of the best perimeter defenders of the last 5 years of Marcus Smart. Last year wasn't his best defensive year, but the year before that he was Defensive Player of the Year. They lose him, which hurts their perimeter defense. But they went out and got a big in Kristaps Porzingis, who has incredible interior defense, good rim protection, and not only does he have that, he can space the floor as a 7'3" sniper and a guy who was elite in isolation as a big man. And you still have Al Horford, not the best rebounder, but another guy who can stretch. And I think his switching and perimeter defense and a pick and roll and his IQ is second to none as far as veteran front court players. But you lost perimeter defense. So now all offseason, it's like, man, you know, the Celtics made a move, but at what cost? Because they don't have that same perimeter defender like they did with Marcus Smart. Derek White was phenomenal, but it's just Derek White out there. They go out and they get Jrue Holiday, who, in my opinion, is a better perimeter defender than Marcus Smart. So I look at the Boston Celtics and I say, what holes do they have in their lineup? Now, when you talk about depth, yeah, they're going to be thin as far as depth goes. I believe they're going to still depend on Luke Cornett. I know they signed Banton from the Toronto Raptors. You still have Peyton Pritchard. So they're going to have to really figure things out that way. There's still some names on the free agent market. You have Jalen Noel. You have Cam Payne and other guys. The free agent market has kind of stretched out for a long period of time. We're still seeing guys picked up like Kelly Oubre and Christian Wood as of recently. So maybe there's some way that they can do that. But as far as starting lineup units, they're going to be as good as anybody in the East. Obviously, the Bucks are the heavy favorite because you have two top 5 offensive weapons in the NBA with Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo, and you still have Chris Middleton. But I think the Celtics, they put themselves in as best of a position as you can to respond to one of your opponents going out and getting an offensive superstar like Damian Lillard. Now, the other part of this is, what does this mean for the Miami Heat, the Philadelphia 76ers, my New York Knicks, the Cleveland Cavaliers? These are all teams who had solid off seasons, and they're probably going to be really good teams and solid teams. But when you talk about competing out East is going to be a dogfight. Out East was a dogfight last year. The Miami Heat, they answered the call. They had one of the best runs we've seen. But when you talk about this offseason, it's been tough for them. They didn't land Damian Lillard. I know that's disappointing because they literally were his favorite to go to. That's all offseason he was talking about. He wanted to go there or nowhere. So to not land him was a big disappointment. The second part of that is the fact that it shifted to Jrue Holiday. It's like, okay, we talked about it on the podcast, even the Through the Wire podcast. It was like, hey, they didn't get Damian Lillard, but consolation prize could be getting Jrue Holiday. And in my opinion, I was like, that would be cool. It would be a lot. It ain't Damian Lillard. It damn sure ain't Damian Lillard. So it's like, cool. But for them to not even get that, and that to me wasn't like the, it was kind of like, I guess you get Jrue Holiday. But for them to not even get Jrue Holiday, we're now looking at a team who lost Max Strus. This is a team that lost Gabe Vincent. Those are two big names that played a part in their their postseason run of last year where they made it to the NBA Finals. You already were behind the 8 ball in that run. As historic as it is, it's hard to believe that you're able to pull that off twice, especially when the top teams out East, as of already, got better. They got better. They got a lot better. And you didn't get better, and you potentially, arguably, got a little worse. It's tough. And then you look at Philadelphia, who I cut them a little bit of slack because they have some turmoil going on the inside of the organization because James Harden kind of doesn't want to – now I don't want to say kind of. James Harden doesn't want to be there. Him and Daryl Morey's relationship is fractured, which is a tough situation to be in where you're bringing in a new head coach who's just trying to get everybody on one accord. That's already as tough as it is. But with the 76ers, at least they have him. At least James Harden is on the team still, and they'll figure it out if they're going to trade him or they're just going to play through it. Whatever's going on, he is at least on the roster and is on the team and is going to report to camp and be there at the start of the season. They at least have that. The Heat really have losses, and they didn't have any replacements. So it's not that I'm counting them out. It's not that they have no chance. They're always going to have a chance with Jimmy Butler and playoff Jimmy, the way that he propels his game to another level. But I think it is tough for them to see two of the top names, leave the market like that when they kind of sat on their hands all offseason thinking that they were going to get Damian Lillard no matter how long it took or how long it prolonged or got drawn out. Damian Lillard at the end of the day was going to be a Miami Heat. And he's another name off the list. And Jrue Holiday was supposed to be a pivot move. He's now a name off of the list. Bradley Beal is now traded. He's off of the list. So when you look around the NBA, as far as what the Miami Heat needs, a lot of the names are shrinking. They're not interested in James Harden, rightfully so. I don't know if he fits their culture. So now I look around, I'm like, even when I think about the season starting and the trade deadline for exactly what the Miami Heat want and what they're looking for, it's tough to see that they're going to be able to make a move now that's going to compete or put them in position to have a realistic chance against these juggernauts if it goes the way we think. The Bucks still have to go out and play basketball. They still have to fit Damian Lillard into what they do. On paper and in my mind, it's going to be a very easy transition. But they do have a new coach. There's a lot of moving pieces out there. Same thing can be said for Boston. Porzingis is a really good player, but he's so specific that they have to now put him into the fold, and now you have to add Jrue Holiday. These are two all-star caliber players that you have to now add into your system and how you do things. So that's going to take some time, but with the time, I think those two teams are going to be exactly what we think. They're going to match the impact that we see on paper. And for the Miami Heat and their fan base, it's kind of tough to see them not get anything and the options in the market kind of shrinking. They did add Josh Richardson, and obviously the Miami Heat are always known for getting the most out of players. They picked up R.J. Hampton, and there's always probably going to be that chance of somebody random just popping onto the scene for them. But as far as star talent and leveling the playing field, it's looking very scarce for the Miami Heat going forward. And you look around, the Knicks. The Knicks are a team that you have to take into consideration of being a little better. We went out and added Dante DiVincenzo. We're going to have guys in their second year now, with Jalen Brunson being our lead guy. Same thing with the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is now going to be Donovan Mitchell's second year. They went out and added Max Strus. It's another year of development for Evan Mobley. The Pacers went out and got better. So it's a lot going on in the East. And I know for Miami Heat fans, they're a bit frustrated. I've been seeing this since the Damian Lillard trade. This trade news is probably only going to make them more frustrated. So I understand. The Miami Heat, they have to do something. I don't know what it is, but hopefully they can just go out and play really good basketball. This is definitely not a year, in my opinion, where you want to get behind the 8 ball and have to play in and do that whole repeat of last year. This is not the year. This is not the year. It's about 8 teams out east who really can be playoff teams. We don't know the version of the Bulls we're going to get. We don't know the version of the Hawks that we're going to get. Like, those are 2 teams that they can be disappointing, but I also wouldn't be surprised if those teams were a lot better than they were last year at the same time. This is going to be the second year for DeJounte Murray, and they finally traded John Collins, and, the second year with Sadiq Bey. The Pistons are a young team who could be a little bit more competitive. Are they going to be better than the Heat? Hell no, but they'll be a little bit more competitive. So it's going to be a lot more night to night for the Heat, and because they're already thin, and because Jimmy Butler just exhausted himself in the playoffs, and you didn't go out and get another, it's just going to be a long season for the Heat, in my opinion. They'll still be good, but this is a team that wants to win the championship after being so close twice now in the past, the short past. So all in all, I love the trade for the Blazers. I think the Blazers walk away in a great position, considering the fact that the timing of Dame's trade request and how everything went down. I do think they were kind of positioned poorly, and they didn't have too many options. And I think that was purposeful, where Damian Lillard knew he had a destination. And he's not wrong for wanting to go to Miami, but I don't think I don't think the Blazers are wrong either for trading him to the Bucks and saying, hey, we have to do something for ourselves. And like I've said from day one, that Miami Heat trade package was not as good as the Milwaukee Bucks trade package. And the reason being was the result of today. The Jrue Holiday value and them being able to flip him and to get 2 additional first-round picks and another young starting caliber center in Robert Williams, plus another veteran player that you can potentially flip immediately or later on in Malcolm Brogdon, that just brings them entirely more value than Tyler Hero. As solid and good as Tyler Hero is, his demand on the market was not going to be as high as Jrue Holiday's, and he damn sure wasn't going to bring you back 2 first-round picks. So I believe the Blazers and their fan base should rejoice. They should be happy. This rebuild looks like it's going to be young, fun, and exciting. They have a boatload of picks now going forward, and they have themselves positioned to gain even more, pivoting on from Jeremy Grant, pivoting on from Malcolm Brogdon at some point. This is going to be a fun rebuild for them. I think the Boston Celtics answered the Milwaukee Bucks greatly. This is probably one of the best responses they could have did outside of, I don't know. This is probably the best response there is. We can't match you offensively. We're going to go and get your former player who's not going to have a chip on his shoulder, and he's going to be a great player to offset what you just acquired, which is offense. We just got defense. We lost Marcus Smart. We now replacing him with a better defender. Not to mention Porzingis. Round of applause for Boston. And last but not least, Miami and your fan base. I would just put all of my stock into Bam and Jimmy and my belief on this franchise and this culture to develop somebody out of nowhere. That's just it. That's where I would put my piece at, knowing that we always figure it out. Miami always figures it out somehow, some way. But I understand that may not be satisfying or satisfying, because right now this team and franchise is itching for a championship after getting so close. Hopefully we get more news. I think Media Day tomorrow is going to be incredible and off the chain, especially in Milwaukee. I can't wait to see what goes down in Boston and everything. I'm excited for the season. We're going to have a lot of content this season. I'm ready. I'm eager. I'm focused. I'm locked in. We locked in. So make sure if you're new, you hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this content, make sure you hit that like button for me. As always, I am Pee Wee the Plug, and I will see you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.